Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Marcus Washington pushed open the heavy glass door of his bank. The chime of the bell echoed through the spacious lobby, but it held no warm resonance for him. Each step on the marble floor seemed to amplify his own discomfort. Today he wasn't the respected CEO, the man his partners and employees admired in the financial world. Today he was simply a black customer in his own bank, and he wanted to see the truth behind the polite smiles. His impeccably tailored navy suit and neatly adjusted tie weren't enough to mask what he already sensed. The employees' gazes slid over him with suspicion or indifference. He took a deep breath and walked toward the first counter, where a young blonde cashier, Emily, was tapping away at her keyboard with calculated slowness. She barely looked up and offered a mechanical smile that vanished instantly. "Hello, I would like to open a current account," said Marcus, his voice calm but firm. Emily sighed, almost imperceptibly, before replying. "We need an appointment for this type of request, sir." Marcus's heart sank, but he showed nothing. He took in every detail, the tension in her shoulders, her curt tone, the speed with which she looked away to help a white customer who had just walked in. He took a step back, his mind already calculating what would happen next. As he headed towards another counter, he observed Tyler, a young, dark-haired employee with bright eyes but a superior air. Marcus approached politely. "I would like some information on commercial loans." Tyler looked him up and down, frowning. "You will have to wait your turn, sir," he replied curtly, without offering the slightest smile or assistance. Marcus felt a simmering anger rising, but he suppressed it. He knew why he was there, to expose prejudice, observe injustice, and understand how those he employed truly behaved. He noted the difference in treatment compared to a white customer who had just requested the exact same service: an immediate smile, attentive gestures, and a cordial conversation. The injustice was blatant, almost painful. He turned away and settled in a corner, his gaze gliding over each interaction. He spoke to himself internally. "Even here, even in my own bank, racism and prejudice persist. But today, they will learn a lesson they will never forget." Marcus Washington was not just a CEO. He was an observer, a strategist. And what he had started as a simple test would turn into a silent but formidably effective confrontation, revealing the truth behind the polite smiles and impeccable uniforms. He clenched his fists discreetly, a mixture of calm and determination in his eyes. This day would not be forgotten, and no one in this bank would ever again underestimate the power and dignity of a black man, regardless of his appearance. Marcus Washington walked slowly toward the main counter. Each step echoed on the polished marble, and every glance he met seemed to slide off him as if he were invisible. He smiled inwardly, aware of his objective: to observe, understand, take notes. Emily, the young blonde cashier, barely looked up as he approached. Marcus took a step forward and said calmly, "Hello, I would like to open a current account." Emily looked at him with a mixture of indifference and slight contempt. "Sorry, sir, we cannot help you without an appointment." Marcus inclined his head slightly, as if to show he understood, but in reality, he was both surprised and hurt. He had heard of subtle prejudices before, but to experience them in his own bank, from his own staff, was a shock. He straightened up, approaching another counter. There, Tyler, a young, dark-haired employee with harsh features and a calculating gaze, was typing away on his keyboard. Marcus attempted a more direct approach. "I would like to obtain information about your premium services." Tyler stared at him, frowned, and shook his head. "You will have to wait your turn, sir." Without a smile, without a helping hand. Marcus felt a burning sensation of humiliation run through his chest, but he remained calm. His inner voice resonated: "This is exactly why I'm doing this. To see the truth." As he stepped back to observe the situation, a white customer entered and requested the exact same service. Instantly, the reception changed. Tyler stood up, smiled warmly, and led the customer to an available desk, engaging him in attentive conversation. Marcus clenched his fist slightly beneath the unseen table in his own fury. The difference in treatment was blatant, almost unbearable. He stepped back and settled into a corner of the lobby, observing silently. Every smile, every gesture, every word spoken to a white customer contrasted sharply with the contempt shown to black customers. Marcus took note of everything in his mind, every detail, every micro-expression. He spoke to himself internally. This is not just a test. It's a mirror to the injustice that many suffer every day. And today, I'm going to show that appearances can be deceiving. Marcus finally stood up, determined. He knew he would soon reveal himself, but before that, he wanted every moment, every gesture, every prejudice firmly etched in the employees' minds. This day would not be forgotten, and he would transform this silent humiliation into a memorable lesson for everyone. Marcus walked to the next counter, determined to get answers, even if it meant enduring the humiliation in silence. This time, he came face to face with Linda, the agency manager. A woman in her 40s, also blonde, with a stern face and a cold gaze. Marcus stepped forward calmly and said, "Hello, I would like to discuss a business loan." Linda narrowed her eyes, scrutinizing him from head to toe, as if his appearance alone were enough to judge his legitimacy. She crossed her arms and replied curtly, "Sorry, sir, we cannot process your request today. Please come back another day." Marcus felt a mixture of shock and anger rising within him. In his own bank, he was being treated like an unwanted customer. He took a deep breath, controlling his frustration. That's exactly what I needed to see. Their true face. He observed the scene around him. Tyler, the young employee, and Emily, the blonde cashier, exchanged embarrassed glances, as if they subconsciously knew they were being unfair. But no words, no gestures, no change in behavior occurred. Marcus took a step back and attempted a gentler approach. "I understand, but I simply want to get some information. I'm not in a hurry." Linda shrugged and looked away at another customer. Marcus then realized the harsh reality: prejudice needed no justification. Simply being black in that lobby was enough to deny him any right to attention and respect. At that moment, a white customer arrived, requesting the exact same service. The difference in treatment was immediate and blatant. Linda smiled, was attentive, and offered him a seat in an office. Tyler approached, asked detailed questions, and engaged in a polite and warm conversation. Marcus felt a dull ache in his chest. Discrimination, however subtle, struck here, at the very heart of what he owned and controlled. He stepped back and sat down on a bench, letting a few moments pass. He observed the customers, the staff, every detail, every gesture. His anger was contained, but his decision was clear: today, he would reveal a truth that no one could ignore. In his mind, Marcus kept repeating to himself, "They will learn that a man can be black, powerful, and respected. And that no appearance should justify contempt." He stood up, calm but determined, ready to continue the experiment. The lesson was only just beginning, and Marcus knew that the moment he revealed himself would forever change the staff's perception. Marcus stepped back a few paces and sat down on a bench near the large lobby window. He didn't need to speak to observe. Every gesture, every smile, every glance from the employees told a story. White customers received attentive, almost privileged treatment, detailed assistance, clear explanations, and genuine smiles. Then he noticed the opposite effect on black customers. As soon as a black person entered the lobby, the atmosphere seemed to change subtly but noticeably. Employees stiffened, responded abruptly, and often averted their gaze. Marcus felt his heart sink. The reality was undeniable: even in a place he owned and managed, racism and prejudice were deeply entrenched. A black woman entered, wearing a smart coat and carrying a discreet handbag. She approached the counter timidly. Tyler, the young employee, gave her an impatient look before asking curtly, "Do you have an appointment?" "No," replied the woman, a little hesitantly, "I would simply like to obtain information about a loan." Tyler sighed and turned to a colleague, visibly annoyed. The woman lowered her head, confused and embarrassed, and finally walked away, clearly humiliated. Marcus clenched his fists discreetly. He noted every detail, every micro-expression, every gesture of silent contempt. This silent observation strengthened his resolve. He would transform this injustice into a memorable lesson. He also noticed Emily, the blonde cashier, who offered warm smiles to some customers but barely a polite word to black customers. Marcus realized that the problem wasn't just Tyler or Linda, but a system of unspoken prejudices, an internal culture that favored some and excluded others. As he continued to observe, Marcus murmured to himself, "Even here, even in my bank, respect is not automatic. It must be imposed, and reinforced." He stood up, adjusted his tie, and walked slowly toward the center of the lobby, as if he wanted every employee to sense his presence without yet revealing his true identity. It was time to move from observation to action, but not before fully understanding the scope of the problem. Every movement, every attitude, every injustice recorded in his mind. Marcus knew that the moment of revelation was approaching, and that it would leave a lasting mark on people's minds. Marcus walked slowly toward Linda's office. His heart beat with a calm but determined intensity. Each step on the polished marble seemed to echo in the lobby, drawing furtive glances from customers and employees alike. He knew this moment would be crucial. He wanted to test their judgment once more, to observe their true reaction to a black customer requesting legitimate service. "Hello, Linda," he said in a calm and confident voice. "I would like to discuss a business loan," he insisted. Linda, arms crossed, scrutinized him from head to toe. Her gaze expressed barely veiled mistrust. She sighed and shook her head. "I cannot process your request today. Please come back another day, sir." Marcus felt a pang of bitterness, but he remained calm. The coldness of his refusal and the curt tone revealed the indifference, even contempt, that he had sensed from the moment of his arrival. He attempted a gentler, almost pedagogical approach. "I understand, Linda, but I'm simply looking for information. I don't need an immediate decision, just advice." Linda looked away and replied, without a smile, without a welcoming gesture. "As I told you, you will have to come back another day." Marcus took a deep breath. Every word, every gesture of refusal was recorded in his mind. He now understood the magnitude of the problem. Racism was not only in words, but in attitudes, looks, tone, the very way of treating a customer. At that moment, a white customer entered the lobby, requesting the exact same service. The difference was immediate and striking. Linda stood up, offered a warm smile, and engaged him in a detailed and polite conversation. Tyler, Emily, and even other employees busied themselves around him with almost exaggerated attentiveness. Marcus felt a simmering anger rising, but he channeled it into implacable calm. He stepped back and sat down on the bench again, observing silently. He understood that the humiliation he was enduring was merely a reflection of that inflicted daily on other black customers. His objective was now clear: this injustice had to be exposed, confronted, and rectified. Marcus murmured to himself. They will learn that respect has nothing to do with appearance, and that the power and dignity of a black man cannot be ignored. He stood up, adjusted his tie, and walked to a corner where he could observe the staff for a moment longer before proceeding to the next step, revealing his identity and the ensuing confrontation. The lesson he was about to deliver would be etched in everyone's minds, and no one would ever again be able to claim that skin color didn't matter in this lobby. As Marcus returned to his seat on the bench, the hall came alive again. A white woman entered, elegant and confident. As soon as she crossed the threshold, Tyler straightened, his face lit up with a genuine smile, and he quickly stepped forward to greet her. "Hello, madam. How can I help you today?" Marcus watched, his heart sinking, the stark contrast with his own experience just moments before. The woman was asking for the exact same service he had, information about a business loan. Tyler led her to an empty desk, handed her brochures, and patiently and politely explained every detail. Even Linda, who had curtly refused him, stood up to greet the customer with a warm smile. Marcus felt a cold anger surge through him, but he controlled it. He mentally noted every gesture, the attentive smile, the engaged glances, the encouraging nods. All of this had been absent when he had asked for the exact same thing just a few minutes earlier. Another employee, Emily, was particularly helpful to the white customer. She offered her coffee, checked her documents, and patiently explained the different account options. Marcus noted every detail, every nuance, every tiny gesture of favoritism that had been denied him. He realized how this scene reflected a bitter but undeniable truth: the treatment of customers in his own bank was not based on need or merit, but on implicit prejudice. Skin color determined the attention, patience, and respect received. Marcus stood up and took a few steps into the lobby, adjusting his tie and watching Tyler and Emily continue to serve the white customer with an ease and enthusiasm they had never before shown her. He murmured to himself, "Everything is clearer now. It's not a mistake, it's not a coincidence. It's a system, and I'm going to make sure it changes." Every gesture, every smile offered to some customers and denied to others, was etched in his memory. Marcus knew the moment he would reveal his true identity was approaching. The lesson he was about to teach wouldn't just be for Tyler, Emily, or Linda, but for everyone who thought a customer could be judged by appearances. He sat down again, his piercing gaze fixed on the counter, patient and calculating. The final confrontation would be imminent, and this silent observation had prepared Marcus to strike exactly where the truth would hurt the most, at the heart of their prejudices. Marcus moved away from the counter and stood in a corner of the lobby, his hands clasped behind his back. He observed each employee with studied calm, analyzing their attitudes, their micro-gestures, and the tone they used with customers. The silent injustice he had witnessed since his arrival weighed heavily on him, but he knew he had to remain in control of his emotions. He spoke to himself internally. Every gesture, every word, every look I received was not a coincidence. They are revealing signs, fragments of a deeply ingrained system of prejudice. But I am not here to complain. I am here to correct, to teach. His eyes fell on Tyler, who was bustling around the white customer with an attentive smile. Emily was offering her help with an enthusiasm she had never shown him before. Even Linda, the manager, seemed to be smiling with ease and patience. Marcus felt a surge of cold anger, but it quickly transformed into unwavering determination. He recalled the countless times, as CEO, when he had observed employees treating certain customers with favoritism, without ever directly intervening. Today, he was going to correct that. Not with sweet words, but with a truth they couldn't ignore. I'm going to reveal myself. I'm going to show them that respect and equality are not optional. They think they know who I am. They're going to find out they were wrong, he murmured, adjusting his tie. He rose slowly, each movement calculated so that his apparent calm conveyed a silent authority. Marcus knew the revelation of his identity would be a shock. But he didn't want it to be merely a surprise. He wanted every employee to understand the lesson: contempt based on skin color was unacceptable, even under his own roof. As he walked toward the center of the hall, Marcus felt a surge of anticipation. Each breath, each step strengthened his resolve. The moment of confrontation was approaching. He now stood ready, not only to reveal his identity, but to face the latent racism and contempt that had been laid bare before his eyes. They will understand that dignity, respect, and justice do not depend on appearance. And today, I will show them that. Marcus took a deep breath and walked toward Linda's office. Each footstep seemed to echo in the silent lobby, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. The employees' eyes fell upon him, some distracted, others curious. He smiled slightly, a calm expression, yet one full of authority. "Hello, Linda," he said in a calm but firm voice. "I don't think you recognize me," he continued. "I'm Marcus Washington, the owner of this bank." A heavy silence fell. Linda paled, her hands clenching on the desk. Tyler and Emily exchanged stunned glances, unable to hide their embarrassment. The other customers looked up, intrigued by the sudden change in atmosphere. You are the owner?" stammered Linda, her voice trembling, unable to hide her surprise. Marcus nodded slowly. "Yes. And I'm here to show you something you should have understood a long time ago: respect and fair treatment do not depend on a customer's appearance. He took a step towards Tyler and Emily, looking them straight in the eyes. All this time, you offered preferential treatment to some customers, ignoring and despising others simply because of their skin color. And today, you realize that the one you ignored, despised, and refused to help, was me. The shock on their faces was palpable. Tyler opened his mouth, but no words came out. Emily looked down, unable to meet Marcus's gaze. Even Linda, usually so in control, seemed overwhelmed by the gravity of the moment. Marcus continued, his voice calm but forceful. What you have just experienced is not a personal lesson. It is a lesson in respect, equality, and human dignity. These values must guide every interaction, every decision, every smile you offer a customer. He took a step back, letting the silence settle, allowing everyone to feel the truth of his words. The tension in the hall was palpable, each employee aware of the gravity of their mistakes. This experience, Marcus concluded, will serve as a starting point. We will implement diversity and inclusion training to correct these prejudices, and I will personally ensure that every client is treated with dignity and equality, starting today. The initial shock slowly gave way to realization. The employees straightened their shoulders, aware of the humiliation they had inflicted, but also of the opportunity before them, to learn and change. Marcus had done more than reveal his identity, he had exposed the truth and delivered a lesson that no one in that hall would forget. The lobby was plunged into a heavy silence. Marcus Washington stood straight, calm but imposing, while the employees looked at each other, incredulous and embarrassed. Every face reflected guilt, embarrassment, sometimes even fear. Tyler, Emily, and Linda were unable to look away, they had just realized the magnitude of their mistake and the harm they had caused. I didn't know, stammered Linda, still in shock. It's not just a question of knowledge, Marcus replied, his voice firm but measured. It's a question of respect and equality. The behavior you've shown is unacceptable. Tyler lowered his head, ashamed. Emily, her eyes shining, whispered. We have been unfair. Marcus looked at them attentively, letting his words sink in. You ignored and treated customers with contempt simply because of their appearance. This cannot happen again. Every customer deserves to be treated with dignity, regardless of their skin color or status. Linda, trying to regain her composure, nodded her head. Mr. Washington, we are deeply sorry. We didn't know. Marcus shook his head slightly, not in anger, but in gravity. It's not just a matter of regret. What you need to do now is learn and correct your behavior. I will implement mandatory diversity and inclusion training for all staff. And I will ensure that everyone understands the importance of every gesture, every word, every smile. The shock slowly subsided into consciousness. Tyler, in a low but sincere voice, said, We understand, Mr. Washington, and we will do better. Emily added, tears welling in her eyes. We will learn and change. Marcus felt a quiet satisfaction. He wasn't there to humiliate, but to awaken consciences. Every emotion in the hall, embarrassment, guilt, surprise, was necessary for the lesson to be learned. He took one last step towards the center of the hall, his gaze sweeping over all the staff. What you have just experienced should remain etched in your mind. Respect does not depend on appearance, status, or skin color. And from today onward, every customer of this bank will receive the treatment they deserve, fair, attentive, and dignified. The staff, deeply shaken, finally understood the magnitude of their mistakes. They had just confronted the truth in a way they would never forget. Marcus, calm but determined, knew that change had begun. After the revelation, the lobby seemed calmer, but the air was thick with a new tension, the tension of growing awareness. Marcus Washington observed the employees, each gradually realizing the extent of their behavior. The initial shock had given way to a mixture of embarrassment, guilt, and a timid but genuine desire for change. Linda approached timidly. Mr. Washington, we truly want to correct our mistakes. We now understand how unfair we have been. Marcus nodded, his gaze penetrating but benevolent. Very well. The first step is to recognize your biases and understand their impact. Then, you will need to take action to ensure that it never happens again. Tyler, still red with embarrassment, spoke up. We never thought our actions could cause so much harm. I'm sorry, Mr. Washington. Emily, her eyes shining, added. Me too, I am, and I want to learn to do better. Marcus smiled slightly. This was not the time to reprimand, but to guide. The learning starts now. I will be implementing a series of training sessions on diversity, inclusion, and respect for each client. But beyond training, it's about changing your attitudes and treating every client with dignity, regardless of appearance or status. He took a few steps into the hall, letting his gaze sweep over Tyler, Emily, and Linda. What you have just experienced is a mirror. It reflects what many people go through every day. If you want to be true professionals, you must always remember this. A respectful silence followed his words. The weight of the lesson began to sink in. The employees understood that change was not just a professional obligation, but a moral responsibility. Marcus concludes. I want you to reflect on your past behavior and make a conscious choice to do better from today onward. Every customer should feel welcomed, respected, and valued. The realization took root in their minds. For the first time, each of them understood that respect and equality are not abstract concepts, but concrete actions to be put into practice in every interaction. Marcus, satisfied, stepped back slightly. He had laid out the problem, sparked reflection, and paved the way for change. The lesson had been learned, and the bank's culture had begun its transformation. The bank lobby had returned to its normal bustle, but the atmosphere had changed dramatically. The employees, still reeling from Marcus Washington's revelation, now behaved with a new, conscious, and respectful attentiveness toward each customer. The initial shock had given way to a desire to rectify past mistakes. Marcus watched Emily assist a black customer with a genuine smile, patiently explaining every detail. Tyler politely approached a couple of customers, taking care to listen attentively. Even Linda, the manager, oversaw the interactions with heightened vigilance, ensuring everyone received fair and dignified treatment. Marcus smiled inwardly. The lesson he had wanted to convey had taken root. He knew that the change would not be instantaneous, but he felt that this day had marked a turning point in the bank's culture. He addressed the staff one last time, his voice calm but firm. What you saw and felt today is not a punishment. It's an opportunity to do better, to become better. Every client deserves respect and dignity. If you forget that, you forget what gives your work in this institution their value. A respectful silence followed. The employees, aware of the gravity of his words, nodded, acknowledging the importance of this lesson. Marcus turned on his heel and headed for the exit, each step echoing on the marble with quiet assurance. He paused for a moment, taking one last look at the hall he owned. Then he murmured to himself. Respect and equality are not options. They are essential. And today, everyone here understands that. As he stepped through the glass door, the familiar ringing of the bell rang out again. This time, it was not a neutral sound, it was the sign of change, of a lesson etched into minds and hearts. Marcus left the bank, satisfied. He knew the battle against prejudice never truly ended, but he had planted a seed. And sometimes, a single seed is enough to transform an entire system. The hall remained behind him, lively but different, marked by the presence of a powerful black man who had made everyone feel that respect and dignity are unshakable, regardless of prejudices or appearances.